Hi everyone, my name is Robert Kabushenga. You know me for many things, but one of my life's personal stories that I have shared occasionally, and I think this is the right time for me to speak out about it, is the question of mental health and how it affected me personally at a really deep personal level. And so last evening, was it last evening? No, yesterday anyway, on 9th of October, which was Uganda's Independence Day, a very good friend of mine, Andrew Mwenda, posted photos on Twitter about a patient outside Butabika Mental Health Referral Hospital who was sleeping on the roadside. And so in reply, I told him that I really wish many people in the world would understand the pain that comes with mental health, especially for the patients, and the anguish that those who have to care for them go through. In this, most people with mental health and those that they look after suffer quietly, never speak out about it, live with a lot of emotional trauma, and then just sort of it bottles up inside them. And yet these are people they love. So one person who got in touch with me after I posted that was Mr. Moses Kalema, who had had similar experiences to mine. So my father had schizophrenia and depression throughout his life, and he would get attacks and bouts at different points in his life. So when I mentioned that I had treated him, so Moses also reached out to me. So we've agreed today to have a conversation about this. Two of us shared experiences. Maybe there is something you can take home from us. But my dad was called Geoffrey Sabiti Kabushenga, and he died 10 years ago. And he suffered from this illness, and just the pain of having to treat him. And so we went through this with my mother over longer periods. Of course, you look back, and I was told that the signs started to appear when he was about 14 years of age. But because of the times, and nobody saw this as a mental health issue. In fact, at that time, the explanation was that it was witchcraft, that he had been bewitched. So by the time they realized he was now an adult, that he was suffering from a mental health problem, so now modern medicine could deal with it and so on. So that was sort of like the flip side. But there was a positive side to this. Even with that condition, my father was able to go to school, study, finish a degree at Makerere, and work in the public service as a foreign service officer, and retired at the rank of a full ambassador. So the point, I guess, for me is that even with mental health, patients can live a full life. They can, if treated and managed well, they can actually contribute to society.
My own father was an accountant.
Okay. What was his name? Who was he?
He was William Seka. William Seka Walgembe is just the family name.
Okay.
And he was an accountant, and he had worked in various organizations. Mentioned maybe Total, Bank of Baroda, and he was into motor racing. He was into also restaurants, highway takeaway. So I remember it was 2000. So we had a house we were staying in, which is really nice. So my father wasn't doing badly financially, I should say.
Yeah.
So, and then all of a sudden things turn, and we were told we have to shift. And as a kid, they don't tell you much.
Okay.
And then we have to shift, still in the same area, Mutundu.
Okay.
The other house in the same place, which was bigger, but it was not as furnished as this other one.
Wow.
So then we realized we have to stop going to the school we were going to. At that time, we were going to Nakasero.
So you have to change schools.
Change school, go to a school on the village, very small school. You can imagine that shift. So I started to realize there's something wrong. And in the other house, we we realize now we don't have the kind of things we had before the food, even the what. So something, I knew something was different, something had changed.
Yeah.
But then, and then all of a sudden, he goes to hospital for a long period of time, and would go to visit. At that time, it was, I think, Maldemay.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when we would come to the hospital, you realize his behavior. He was a reserved guy, so he didn't talk much. But then when you go there, then you realize, and you know, fathers of the time were very, I should say, scary.
Yes.
You just talk to them.
No, you don't.
The conversation I have with you,
these were hard guys.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I realized something is really
not right.
Not right.
Yeah.
And then back home, the family members around, you'd hear the whispers, you'd hear.
What would they be saying? What would they be whispering?
Of course, they would say the direct thing like, Mulalu, something, because in Uganda.
That he's gone mad. He's
gone mad. But I wouldn't expect that of my father, I mean, the kind of guy that I knew. So his major problem was that if that condition came to him, if the attack came to him,
yes,
he would now start, for example, sell off his property at very, very cheap prices. Like a very good house, he sells it at maybe 200,000.
So me, the situation was slightly different. So I didn't live with my father for the first 18 years of my life, and I didn't know very much about him. So later on, and my mom tells me that I need to let you know something. I said, what is it? She says, so your dad is not like other dads. I said, what does that mean? She said, your dad has a problem. So she put it very bluntly. She said, he runs mad. That's in the, in our local language. She said, oh, okay. Said, but so how come he goes to work? So she said, yeah, he works, but he gets breakdowns. So sometimes he heals quickly. Sometimes he takes a long time to heal. So when we start to live together, we think that now maybe he's recovered and it's not going to happen again and life will start. Because it lost, every time he would fall sick and he would have to leave work, he'd lose everything. Everything. I mean, he would even have no clothes.
Oh, that's really...
So now in 1988, he started to show signs. He would not go to work, he would stay in bed, he would grow his beard. My dad would never grow his beard unless he was sick. He would never. He was always clean shaven. Very well dressed, always, in a suit, tie. Then sometimes he would go to work, sometimes he wouldn't go to work, then he would go for long walks, then he would come back. He became, I don't know how it happened with you, but for us, once he fell sick, he became very hostile to everybody he loved. Very hostile. He wouldn't want to talk to any one of us.
Yeah, that is true, even for my father. He would, like the hostility you're talking about, I remember that part. And he would only talk to one person, and that is his mother. The rest, like they couldn't deal with him even in the house. Maybe wake up late in the night and he just wants to walk out and go.
You see, my own experience like that, again, was now, because 88 is I knew the guy had this problem, but in 88, 89, because that period he was out for 2 years. And I mean, completely out of it. He just exactly the way the guys they call mad. He was gone. So, but still, like you went to visit him in hospital. I would go to visit him in the village to see him, to go see the man. Maybe he's better, maybe. So, two things took me down the same road as you. So I go home, I get home, and the guy is not there. And then much later, but then I go to bed, and then the next day, Nobody can find where he is. And then he comes back in the afternoon. And he's been wearing the same clothes for over a week. And same shoes, his beard is grown, and he hasn't bathed, and he is talking to himself. He's having, of course, what's going on is that they're always having these conversations with these imaginary people in their heads. And he's having a full, so he's talking, he comes home, he comes in, he stops, he looks at me, he passes, he continues talking to himself, goes into the room where he was staying, talks, laughs, talks to himself, laughs, comes out, looks at me, asks me, "What are you doing here?" At that point, I was 20 years. Never seen anything like this. Never imagined ever in my life that I would be associated with what society calls a madman. So I look at this guy and he asks me, "What are you doing here?" He didn't wait for an answer. So he walked out again and went. So I go to the local trading center, and when I get there, I walk into a shop to buy something. I can't remember what it was. When I walk out, one of the guys tells the other in Ruchiga, which is our local language, he says, "That's the son of the madman." Now, at that time, we were staying in a government house. So in something similar to what you went through. So we were scared that any time the government people are going to they're going to come and throw us out of the house, and where would we go? So so all of this, the anxieties are many. The anxieties are many. You know, one time, so he'd gone to work, I think it was in Ethiopia. So then he had a breakdown and he had to come back. So I was at the airport to pick him and my mother. And so there was this lady who was also working in the embassy with him in Addis Ababa. And so they came out all in a group. So, you know, of course, I went to receive my dad, you know, welcomed him. Now, one of those people, the lady who was in that Ugandan group that was coming in, she was walking away, but she said in Luganda, I remember that very well. This is 2000, no, this is 98, I think now. This is now 98. She says, that one is now finished. He will never come back to work. It's done. She was, of course, an employee at the embassy in the ministry, so she was telling her colleagues who had come to pick her that she dismissed him, said that one is finished. So, of course, she didn't think that we'd had anything, or that if we did, she did care. For her, it was just, he's now a madman, he's finished, he's gone. What's very ironic is that he actually did go back to work after that. He went back, worked, and was promoted to a full ambassador, and then he retired. So my dad's family are a big family. So his brothers and sisters had gotten accustomed to this problem. So they knew that he had this problem, and they loved him a great deal. So all of them always managed to come in and support and provide help. The difference is that at some point later on, these people had their own lives to live, and they had to go about their normal business. So many of them, you know, my aunties, my uncles, they provided support. So that sort of takes away a bit of the rough edge, but also it helped me in the sense that, okay, at least I could focus on just which hospital do I take him to. So that helped in a way. And then also my mom, this is something that she took on and decided to be very supportive of him until she died. In fact, before she died, one of her, you know, lamentations or cries was that, so who is going to look after my husband when I am gone? Who will take care of him when...
So she died before him?
Yes, she died before him. She died in 2001, he died in 2009. So when he dies, sort of slowly the burden sort of shifts to my wife. Why? Because there were times when he just didn't want to see me. So I couldn't even go to hospital. So if I turned up, he would just become very hostile. So I'd ask my wife, you take the food. So my wife would take the food, and he would eat, and he would ask her how she was, and say, where's your sister? Then my wife would have to bring her sister. So then we would treat him. So I would ask her, how is he today? She said. So sometimes I would wait in the corridor so he doesn't see me when he eats. There was one particular incident, you see, that I remember. So I am at home, and now I'd left him in Butavika because I didn't have a choice, because they have to give him an injection so that he can come down before they release him to you. So I'd left him in Butavika. So I'm in bed, I think. I can't even remember what I was doing. I received a phone call. Hello, is that Robert? I said, yes. He said, we have moved your father from Butavika to Mulago because he's gotten a terrible case of diabetes. We cannot treat it here. We have to treat it. He has to go to Mulago. But we've left him at casualty, so there's nobody to look after him, so you have to go. So I got into the car and drove to Mulago. And when I get to Mulago, I realize, so I have to stay here. So I get in, he's admitted, they are stabilizing him, there's a bed there. So he asks me, what are you doing here? I tell him I'm come to help you if you need help. He tells me I don't need help. I said, well, I have to stay because I can't leave you all alone. So he slept there, I slept on the other bed. So yes, in those situations can be very trying, and if you haven't been to Butavika, you haven't seen. So let me ask you now, as Moses, what would you say to people who have mental health patients, or who have mental health problems? What would you say to them? What would be your message to them? That's one group. The second group is those people who don't know about the mental health problem.
So we shouldn't always look at these people as they are trash, they're gone, they are wasted.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, because also, I don't know if you had this, but you also mentioned that certain times we feel like, or people talk about it as witchcraft.
Yeah.
If someone went out and
no, the myth around my dad was that he had been bewitched by my uncle who was unhappy, so he cursed him, and so in other words, it's a lost cause. But mental health is not witchcraft. So really, for me, I want to thank you, Moses, for coming out, because many people don't have that courage, which also helped me to be able to have this conversation with you about the mental health issues. I want to tell people out there that please never use mental health as a joke. It's an illness. No mental health patient chose or decided to have these problems. For many mental health people, it's just an illness that happened, or whether for genetical reasons or whatever, it's an illness that we need to deal with. For those who, like me, you have to deal with, you've had to deal with mental health patients, it can be trying, it is very painful, physically and emotionally, but you have to develop a type of strength that many other people, and empathy that many other people, to deal with it. Running away from it, hiding it under wraps, hoping nobody ever knows, makes you even worse. It sustains the pain. You just never get better. So I hope that on this World Mental Health Day, and we hope that our conversation I've had with Moses Kalema can help, especially those of you affected by mental health issues, to reflect on this problem, and let's have better social ways of dealing and supporting those that have it. So Moses, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
And
you.
nice to meet a person with shared experiences, even though they were not that good.
Yeah, they were not that good, but
Yeah.
it's good to talk about it.
Yeah.
It also frees you up.
Yeah.
And you know there's someone who went through the same thing there. It also means there's someone who can listen to this.
And maybe we should go back to Butavika and visit.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.